ancestors worked really hard at making a living, and there wasn't much to spare. So if they wanted new clothes, plain or fancy, they made them. Simple as that. The result was often beautiful things that were passed down from generation to generation. Without really thinking about it, they were making heirlooms. Maybe we don't have time to hand-stitch everything like in the old days, but we can still make things for our families that are a little better and a little nicer than what you could buy. And they will become real treasures to our descendants someday. That's very satisfying.
Heirlooms by Design with Sharon LaMonaco is sponsored by Capital Imports, your passport to fine lace, embroideries, and fabrics. And by Quilts Plus, your authorized Bernina dealer. Nothing sews like a Bernina. Nothing. Now, here's Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon LaMonaco. Thanks for joining me on Heirlooms by Design. I have a beautiful technique to show you, and you will be amazed at how easy it is. Today we are going to do shadow applique. Shadow applique is intended to look like shadow embroidery, which is a beautiful technique that is done on the back side of a sheer fabric. The fabric allows the colored floss to shadow through to the front side of the fabric. As with many hand techniques, shadow embroidery can be very time-consuming. Stay with us, and we'll be right back to show you just how quick and easy shadow applique can be.
Sharon will be back right after this.
We could tell you that the Burnett Overlock is the finest Swiss engineered machine available, or that the Burnett Overlock offers 3 or 4 threads and differential feed that give your seams a professional look in no time. And we might say that the Burnett Overlock offers the easiest roll hemming available. But why should we? Vogue pattern readers already did. The 1990 Reader Survey named Burnett the #1 overlock.
Available at Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street in Anniston.
See Quilts Plus, your authorized Bernina sewing machine dealer for all of your sewing needs. At Quilts Plus, we specialize in classes and supplies for quilting, French machine sewing, English smocking, and machine embroidery. To continue our commitment to consumer education, we are pleased to introduce the Kids Can Sew program for children 8 years and older. After-school classes are forming now. Come into Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street to pick up our current schedule of ongoing classes and to sign up for the class of your choice. Advanced sign-up is required for all classes.
I'd like to show you some of the designs that have been done with shadow embroidery designs and translated to shadow applique. The first one on our little collar was taken from the Easter So Beautiful issue. And you can see that I have taken what was intended to be a hand shadow embroidery design and translated it to shadow applique. I've also used a sewing machine to do the special embroidery touches around the outside. Our next one, we have these cute little bunnies. And these were taken from Gail Williams' Shadow Work Designs for Children. And again, they were intended to be done by hand, and I've translated them to the sewing machine. And our next one, we've taken her little birds, and I have enlarged these somewhat to fit the size of the collar, and then we've added the embroidery touches and the ribbon. Now, all of these garments are made from Swiss batiste, Swiss organdy collars, and Irish linen, and the fabrics and laces are from Capital Imports. And I've used sulky thread for all of my embroidery. Let's take a look at the materials that we need to use for shadow applique. The first thing is our base fabric. Today we're going to be using Imperial Batiste. We need to have a fabric that's sheer enough to allow the color of our applique fabric to shadow through. The next thing we need is brightly colored fabric. Now, the brighter the color, the better, because the color is going to lose some of its intensity as the base fabric goes over the top. The technique that I'm going to show you, we will be using a fusible web. I have fused wonder-under to the face of this fabric. Now, we fuse the wonder-under to the face of the fabric, not the back. Also, we'll be using sulky thread. Sulky is a beautiful rayon machine embroidery thread. It comes in a lot of different colors, and it's wonderful for all of your machine embroidery and applique techniques. In the bobbin, we will be using a Mettler basting thread. The Mettler thread is very, very fine, and we don't want to have a lot of thread buildup on the back of our piece. I'm also going to be using it in white because I want it to match the background fabric. Also, when we use the white basting thread, we don't need to continually change our bobbin. We can just leave the same thread in for the whole time. The other thing that we will be using is a machine embroidery hoop. This hoop is designed so that it will easily slide under the foot of your sewing machine, and we will see that in just a few moments. Now, I want you to notice that I have wrapped the inside of the hoop. This is wrapped with a 1-inch wide bias strip of fabric. This will help to hold my fabric taut in the hoop without allowing it to slip as it would if it were just against the wood. The other thing that we will be using today is our applique scissors. And these will allow us to clip our applique very close to the edge without taking the chance of clipping our base fabric. The next thing we need after this is a design. And the design that we're going to be using today is from Kathy Garashi's book, Special Embroidery Techniques. And she has some wonderful, wonderful designs in here. The collar of my dress was done from this book. Let's turn to our design page. We're going to make these large tulips. The first thing we're going to do is draw the design onto our fabric. And before we do that, we're going to spray starch our fabric. I'm going to use a number 2 pencil to draw my design, and if I spray starch my fabric first, it puts a coating on the fabric and does not allow the pencil to penetrate the fibers of the fabric, so the pencil will then come off more easily when we're ready to wash. So while I get my fabric prepared, we'll be right back.
Sharon will be back right after this.
See Quilts Plus, your authorized Bernina sewing machine dealer for all of your sewing needs. At Quilts Plus, we specialize in classes and supplies for quilting, French machine sewing, English smocking, and machine embroidery. To continue our commitment to consumer education, we are pleased to introduce the Kids Can Sew program for children 8 years and older. After-school classes are forming now. Come into Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street to pick up our current schedule of ongoing classes and to sign up for the class of your choice. Advanced sign-up is required for all classes.
If you're looking for a sewing machine that makes sewing a breeze, discover the computerized Bernina 1230. With unlimited stitch combinations at the touch of a button, self-adjusting tension, and our exclusive presser foot lifter, the Bernina 1230 will blow you away! Hold on! For a limited time only, you'll also get this free differential feed overlock when you buy the 1230!
Available at Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street in Anniston.
To begin, we need to remember to spray starch your fabric and trace your design. And here we have the collar. I have, with the blue line here, you can see that I have drawn the outline of my collar pattern. And then I've positioned my design so that it's in the middle. It's been spray starched, and then the design has been traced with a number 2 pencil, very lightly, just dark enough that you can see it. By the time you finish working it, you won't see that line at all. Now, before we get going into this technique, I want to show you the technique that Kathy describes in her book. This little collar here is done using the pin stitch on the Bernina 1230. There are several machines that have this particular little stitch on it, and if you'd like to use some of your decorative stitches, you can. The other thing I want to show you about this particular design is that we need to work from the foreground. The little strawberry caps are in front of the strawberries, which are in front of the leaves. So we will first stitch the strawberry caps. Second, we'll stitch the strawberries. And then third, we'll come back with our green and stitch the strawberries again. So remember, you need to work from the foreground to the background, one color at a time. Now let me show you how to hoop your fabric and we'll get started. We're going to take our machine embroidery hoop and we need to lie the outside of the ring on a flat surface. Position our design so that it's in the center and then press the inside ring down. Need to loosen it up a bit here. And we want our fabric to be nice and taut. We want to pull it only on the straight of grain, don't pull it on the bias. And when you need to tighten it up, we don't want to pull this way to tighten. Turn it over and pull it down. This way you're not going to pull your inside hoop out from the outer hoop. When this is nice and tight, if you need to get it even tighter, you can put a screwdriver in here. When it's nice and tight, we're ready to sew. First thing we're going to do is take our fabric that has the under fused to the back, and we're going to peel off the paper backing. Now remember, this is the face of the fabric that has the under on it. And we're going to just position it behind our fabric. Now I'm going to take a little straight pin to just hold that piece of fabric in place until I get it under the foot of my sewing machine. Now let me explain our sewing machine setup. I'm going to be using a straight stitch, and I feel like this makes it look even more like shadow embroidery. I'm using Mettler basting thread in the bobbin, and I do have the bobbin finger of the Bernina threaded. This gives us a little bit of extra tension on our bobbin so that we don't see any of the white thread pulling up. And I have my machine threaded with the sulky round machine embroidery thread, and I'm going to be using foot number 20. Foot number 20 is my open toe applique foot, and this will allow me real good visibility so that I can see exactly what my needle is stitching. Now we're ready to sew, and the first thing I'm going to do is stitch this pink tulip right here. You notice that the embroidery hoop slides right underneath the foot of the machine. First thing I want to do is bring up my bobbin thread, and I'm going to adjust my stitch length to about a 1.5. And you just stitch along and follow the lines that you've drawn. Your machine embroidery hoop, not only does it stabilize your fabric, but it also acts like a little steering wheel. And you can turn the fabric, and when you go around an edge that's on a biased curve, you don't have to worry about stretching your fabric. I'm just going to continue stitching all the way around this outline of this shape. I like to hold my beginning threads to the side and stitch over the top of them. In a moment, we're going to thread them onto a needle and put them through to the back of the fabric. Now we've ended here. I'm going to just bring my thread up. And clip my threads. Now we're ready to thread this onto a needle and put it to the back of the fabric. And we'll be back in just a minute after we've done that.
Sharon will be right back with more Heirlooms by Design.
If you're looking for a sewing machine that makes sewing a breeze, discover the computerized Bernina 1230. With unlimited stitch combinations at the touch of a button, self-adjusting tension, and our exclusive presser foot lifter, the Bernina 1230 will blow you away! Hold on! For a limited time only, you'll also get this free differential feed overlock when you buy the 1230!
Available at Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street in Anniston.
See Quilts Plus, your authorized Bernina sewing machine dealer for all of your sewing needs. At Quilts Plus, we specialize in classes and supplies for quilting, French machine sewing, English mocking, and machine embroidery. To continue our commitment to consumer education, we are pleased to introduce the Kids Can Sew program for children 8 years and older. After-school classes are forming now. Come into Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street to pick up our current schedule of ongoing classes and to sign up for the class of your choice. Advanced sign-up is required for all classes.
We could tell you that the Burnett Overlock is the finest Swiss engineered machine available, or that the Burnett Overlock offers 3 or 4 threads and differential feed that give your seams a professional look in no time. And we might say that the Burnett Overlock offers the easiest roll hemming available. But why should we? Vogue pattern readers already did. The 1990 Reader's Survey named Burnett the #1 overlock.
Free 004D with differential feed with purchase of the Bernina 1230.
We're ready to do the satin stitch embellishment on our first pink tulip. The first thing I'm going to do is select a zigzag. I have selected a satin stitch length, and I'm going to begin with a width of 1.5. Now I'm going to be increasing and decreasing the stitch as I sew, and I'm going to do that with my forefinger on the knob. When I need to get wider, I'm going to simply turn my finger, and as it gets narrower, I'll turn it the other way. And I know that when my finger is straight up, it's back where I began. Now I've brought up my bobbin thread, and we're ready to sew. Now as I go along and my design line widens, I'm going to simply turn my finger on the dial. Now I'm going to turn it back to a 0 and stitch in place to just secure that stitch. Now I'll go to my next area. We don't need to cut our bobbin thread at this point. I'm going to position my needle, and I'm starting out with a very, very narrow zigzag, and I'm going to increase it as I sew. And this gets wider and narrower, so it adds a lot of interest. Because we have a dial to increase and decrease, we don't get any jumping of the stitches. I need to just stop and reposition. And all the way down to nothing. And secure the thread. Now we're ready to take this out. Now these can just be clipped because we've secured that thread with some straight stitches. And we can remove our pin now as well. We're going to turn it over, and now we're ready to clip away our excess fabric, and we're going to do that with our applique scissors. The applique scissors have this nice bill on them that's going to prevent us cutting our collar fabric. And we just put these along our stitch line. I'm using my finger underneath the fabric to feel, to be sure of the positioning of the blade of these scissors. They're very, very sharp. And just continue to clip all the way around. These applique scissors are also used in French sewing. Remember to feel underneath so that you can tell where your scissors are. And just clip in all of those little nooks and crannies. first tulip has been clipped, and let's see what it looks like from the outside, from the front side. Isn't that pretty? Now we're ready to go on to our yellow tulip. Now we've begun sewing our stems and leaves, and we're using our straight stitch, and again our stitch length is 1 3/4. And I'm going to just continue stitching along this leaf. Now I want you to notice that I'm at the end of where my hoop is. My foot is hitting that hoop, and I need to get out of that spot. I can't turn it around because the back of my foot would hit. So I'm going to use my permanent reverse. And we're going to just back up until I can get enough room to be able to turn my hoop and continue stitching straight. That permanent reverse on your machine will come in handy. And anytime you're sewing with a hoop, if you don't have enough room in one direction, just turn it around and go the other way. And I think on this end, we will also need to use reverse. So just put it in reverse and back up until we have enough room to turn it around and go forward. Now we're ready to remove our thread, and we're going to leave this thread long enough that we can put it through to the back with a needle to secure it, because otherwise it would just come unsewn. And at this point, I'm ready to trim the green fabric from my leaves and my stems, and then the center of our applique will be completed. Now some of these tight areas you'll need to get into with the point of your applique scissors. And sometimes you want to just clip the fabric out of the way. This is one of those areas where we need to get in with the point. And you'll turn your applique scissors around in your hands depending upon the type of area that you have to get into. You can see how closely you can clip to the fabric. Now this is another little point we need to get into right here. Now I'm sort of pressing up on the back of the fabric with my finger, and that helps me to be able to clip it closely. Let's take our pin out, and you'll be able to see this as it progresses. Nice and close around those curves, but not so close that you clip your stitching. You need to be careful of that. If you do clip the stitching, it's not the end of the world. Just go back and stitch it again. Okay. Now be sure that everything is as close as you want it to be. I think that looks fine. Now, we are ready to take our iron and press this. Remember, we had put the Wonder Under on the face of the fabric, and you might be wondering how this fabric trimmed so close is going to be stable. We're just simply going to iron it with the Wonder Under, and it does not show through. We can't see it at all, and it secures the fabric, and it's not going to unravel or go anywhere. And this is the difference between the technique that I've shown you tonight and the technique that's in Kathy Garashi's book. She has some beautiful designs and some wonderful techniques and some beautiful embroidery embellishment techniques. And if you don't have a machine that has the pin stitch on it, this is a good solution to that problem.
We could tell you that the Burnett Overlock is the finest Swiss engineered machine available, or that the Burnett Overlock offers 3 or 4 threads and differential feed that give your seams a professional look in no time. And we might say that the Burnett Overlock offers the easiest roll hemming available. But why should we? Vogue pattern readers already did. The 1990 Reader Survey named Burnett the #1 overlock.
Free 004D with differential feed with purchase of the Bernina 1230.
Many of the designs that we've used today are from Kathy Garashi's book, Special Embroidery Touches by Machine. This is a wonderful book for design resources and also for the technique for shadow applique. This book is available at Quilts Plus.
See Quilts Plus, your authorized Bernina sewing machine dealer for all of your sewing needs. At Quilts Plus, we specialize in classes and supplies for quilting, French machine sewing, English smocking, and machine embroidery. To continue our commitment to consumer education, we are pleased to introduce the Kids Can Sew program for children 8 years and older. After-school classes are forming now. Come into Quilts Plus, 1211 Noble Street to pick up our current schedule of ongoing classes and to sign up for the class of your choice. Advanced sign-up is required for all classes.
Well, here's our finished shadow applique. Can you imagine how quick and easy this was? I've enjoyed visiting with you, and I hope you continue to tune in to Heirlooms by Design. In the coming weeks, we have many exciting techniques to show you. They will range from quilting to French machine sewing and English smocking to machine embroidery techniques, and all of them will be Heirlooms by Design.
Heirlooms by Design has been brought to you by Quilts Plus, your authorized Bernina dealer, and by Capital Imports. Thread racks on the set of Heirlooms by Design provided by Handcrafted Wood Products, Mobile, Alabama. For an expanded version of today's show on VHS videotape, send $29.95 plus $2.50 postage and handling to Lamonaco Designs, 1211 Noble Street, Anniston, Alabama, 36201. That's Lamonaco Designs, 1211 Noble Street, Anniston, Alabama, 36201. Be sure to ask for today's topic by name. Visa or MasterCard accepted. Sharon will be back with more Heirlooms by Design next week.